The Baltimore Ravens and Detroit Lions face off on a big Monday Night Football stage in Week 3 in a game that should tell us a lot about both teams.
And Kevin, the Lions haven't beaten the Ravens in 20 years.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into a crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions. I'm Kevin Oestreicher of Locked On Ravens. He is Matt Dery of Locked On Lions, and we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today on this crossover Thursday, making both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. And we have a jam-packed show diving into the biggest storylines, the key matchups to watch, and of course, how the Ravens and the Lions can win this game. I want to remind everybody that today's crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Matt, I am very excited for this game. I have been really since the schedule came out.
Yes.
The Ravens, they love playing in prime time. And I think for both these teams, there are a lot of things you can probably tell about them once the clock hits zero in this game. A lot of things these teams are probably trying to figure out about themselves as well after the first 2 weeks of the season.
Oh, no question about it. And these are two heavyweights, and this is an awesome matchup. These two teams don't play against each other a lot. And to get on this Monday Night Football stage, Kevin, is very exciting. Two offenses that can really go. And you got to figure for our FanDuel friends out there that a lot of overs will be out there for this Lions-Ravens team. I expect a high-scoring game.
I think it will be. I'm right there with you. And I know, Matt, in Detroit, it's been a tale of two teams in the first couple weeks of the season. Obviously, the loss of the Packers in Week 1, followed by a thumping of the Bears in Week number 2. What's the biggest storyline in Detroit right now as we get ready for this game on Monday night?
I think the biggest storyline is that the Lions are back. I mean, after Week 1 and how embarrassing that certainly was in Green Bay and how poorly they played, the opportunity to on a pretty big stage against their former offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson to really wallop the Chicago Bears and do it in an impressive fashion to the point, and you and I talked about this before we hit record, running up the score basically on them late. Now everybody feels good again. The good feeling is back. The good vibe is back. Jared Goff, NFC Offensive Player of the Week, 5 touchdowns. And, you know, the weapons that are all – Isaac Tesla's made 2 plays. He has 2 catches on the year. That's it. He's the 4th receiver. But they've both been outstanding plays, one-handed catches. So the good vibes are back. The defense was good. And now the true test certainly comes against a high-level AFC team and having to try to stop Lamar Jackson. So should be interesting. How about in Baltimore? Obviously – the gag job in Week 1, but I'm sure a good feeling after this past Sunday against the minor league Browns, right?
Yeah, would have been a lot harder to move past it if they weren't able to get the job done. And it was crazy, Matt, because the offense didn't necessarily play up to the level that they really are supposed to, particularly in the run game. Derrick Henry was held to just about 2 yards a carry. The Browns did a great job of stopping him, and the Ravens, you look up and they have 41 points. Lamar Jackson has 4 touchdowns, and you're like, oh, this doesn't even feel like they're really playing that well, and they still have 41 points. So they have scored 40 points in back-to-back games here to start the season, and that's a good sign as any. I do think, though, that some of the offense has had a bit of a slow start, which I think makes the start to their season even more incredible. Mark Andrews only has 2 catches on the year. He kind of talked about his slow start a little bit, saying that he doesn't really believe he's off to one because of the fact that he's been impactful as a blocker, springing Derrick Henry on some plays. And, you know, he says he's still an elite tight end. And I believe that too. I know it's not the popular opinion in Baltimore right now, but the Ravens possibly, it's not, we're going to have to wait till Monday night. They could be getting Isaiah Likely back from his broken foot in this game. We'll have to see how that unfolds over the course of the week. Then on the offensive line, I think is the other big story. They really struggle with that Browns defensive front at times. And, you know, Myles Garrett right now is arguably the best defensive player in the world. So that's something you have to kind of figure out. But, you know, in my opinion, you have guys like Roger Rosengarten, Daniel Faalele, Andrew Voorhees. Ronnie Stanley struggled in this game against Cleveland as well. I think that and we'll get to matchups a little bit later in the show, but that offensive line for Baltimore, I think the storyline is, Lamar Jackson is the ultimate. He can make something out of nothing. If there's a quick win by a defender, it's not just a defender getting past your offensive lineman. It's also about getting Lamar Jackson down. So he can work with it, but you still want to have him feel comfortable in that pocket to just sit back there and sling it. Getting Likely back would be huge. Kyle Van Noy, obviously a Detroit Lions former player. He is expected to miss a couple of weeks. So obviously probably won't play in this game. Marlon Humphrey got picked up a groin injury, so not clear what his status is going to be. Injuries are always a storyline, Matt. How's Detroit's injury situation looking?
Injury situation is all right. I mean, I think the Lions feel pretty good about where they are. The biggest question mark is Marcus Davenport, but he's always hurt. I made the point on my show I kind of referred to him as Marcus Davenhurt because he just is never out there. When he had a sack in week 2 and finally got one, and it was nice to see. And there's so much talent and potential there, but he's just always injured. Brian Branch had a leg injury that turned out to just be a cramp, and that's it. So that's important. Taylor Decker had a shoulder last week, kept him out of practice. He played a fantastic game against the Bears, but knock on wood, the Lions, feel like they are pretty healthy. You mentioned Van Noy, and I brought this up on my show the other day. Mike Green going to get more snaps. That's a guy that the Lions passed on not once, but twice in the draft this year, that a lot of people mocked him to Detroit. I know there were the off-field issues. Will he be getting more run if KVN is out?
That appears to be the plan. That's what I think is going to happen here. And look, Mike Green is a player that, you mentioned the Ravens felt comfortable enough taking him in the second round with everything that was surrounding him during the draft process and everything that happened off the field. And on the field, I mean, look, the production in college was clear. He was doing it against smaller schools, doing it against, you turn on that Ohio State tape, he was putting people in spin cycles on that field. But I think for him, it's just about getting better each and every single week. This will be his third game and kind of thrust into a big role. He certainly has the talent to be an every down player. He can provide some of that. He almost got a sack on Joe Flacco in week number 2. Would have been his first in his career. Would have been kind of poetic considering Joe's history with the Ravens. But I think that Mike Green is going to be the biggest beneficiary of the playing time that is up for grabs, assuming Van Noy does have to miss this game, which again, all reports are indicating that he will. So other than that, there's not necessarily another guy. I mean, David Ojabo would be the other one who was a second round pick out of Michigan a couple of years ago, but he suffered an injury during his pro day and really never has put anything on the tape for Baltimore to give him a consistent role. So it's going to be Odafe Owe, Tavius Robinson, and Mike Green in this one from the pass rushing department. But speaking of pass rushers, Matt, Aiden Hutchinson obviously suffered the injury last season. It was a brutal one. He's back now. How has he looked in his first couple games, first couple snaps back? Is this the player that, we remember, or is there still a bit of a ramp up that's happening right now?
Well, that's another story for this game is that Aiden Hutchinson, it looked to me like in week 1 at Green Bay, he was just kind of feeling things out. He was getting his sea legs under him, no pun intended, because he came back from a broken leg. He had a ton of pressures against the Bears, and it felt like middle of the second quarter on, it was the Aiden Hutchinson of old being able to get in there. And now having to chase down Lamar Jackson, having to try to corral the most elusive quarterback in the league and do that is a huge story for this game, because I think Aiden Hutchinson's confidence now is back. And I think that he just looks like himself, just looks like a guy that we all expected to, hit stardom again after last year's injury. So being able to somehow, run, I think, and we'll talk about this coming up in the matchup segment, but a guy like Brian Branch is going to be important too against Lamar. But the Lions in week 1 were nowhere near Jordan Love, nowhere near him. And I know the Packers offensive line is much better than the, remade Bears offensive line, which is really like reshuffling deck chairs on the Titanic in Chicago. Their O-line sucks every year. But all in all, I think that front for the Lions pressuring and might not be in sacks. They had 4 sacks last week on Caleb. But if they can just pressure and bother Lamar Jackson, they've got confidence now they didn't have a week ago.
Yeah, speaking of that matchup segment, we will get to that right after we head into our first break on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions on this crossover Thursday. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on the show. First, this show is brought to you by Mazda. And with Mazda, they craft cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving right along on this crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions. Kevin Oestreicher of Locked On Ravens, still here with Matt Dery of Locked On Lions, breaking down everything you need to know for this Monday night matchup between the Ravens and the Lions. And Matt, matchups galore, I think, in this game when it comes to both offense and defense for both teams. Even the special teams matchup, you got, I think, some storylines for that side of the ball as well, which maybe can be make or break. We saw last week for the Ravens, they had a blocked punt that kind of turned the tide to that Cleveland game pretty early and helped them kind of run away with that one. But for you, what matchup are you looking at as your big one to watch?
You know, I touched on it earlier, Kevin. I see Brian Branch as such a weapon for this Lions defense. He's flying all over the field. He's great in the pass game, whether you put him at nickel corner, whether he's at safety alongside Kirby Joseph. But in this game, Lamar Jackson turning the corner, Lamar Jackson getting free and getting loose. If they allow 20, 25-yard runs, a 3rd and 9, and he gets 12, that's where Branch comes in. He just has such a nose for the football. He's like a Scud missile out there. And if he is able to corral Lamar, that's kind of the matchup. I know there have been teams that have had the linebackers spy on him, going back to his days at Louisville. But in this instance, Branch being able to run him down, Jackson versus Branch, I see as being a big-time matchup. And I'll give you another one. I truly believe that Andrews is a guy they're going to target. I'm sure they're hearing about, and you mentioned it before, maybe the production isn't there. So he can be able to get behind the Lions defense. Can the linebackers hang with him if it's an Anzalone in coverage, or a Derek Barnes, even Jack Campbell to an extent, or if it's a safety on Mark Andrews? I think that's one guy that is almost due for a big game, and the Lions have to find a way to cover him. They did a really good job this past week on Loveland and Kmet. I don't know why the Bears didn't target their first-round pick Loveland more, but I see that as being a couple of matchups to keep an eye on, especially for the Lions defensively. How about on your side?
Hey, I think for the Ravens, there are a couple of different ones that I could go with on the offensive side of the ball. But I think if it is Zay Flowers matched up with that, I assume it to be Terrion Arnold, correct? Is that one-on-one? Is that what it would look like?
I would say DJ Reed.
DJ Reed, okay.
On Zay Flowers, yeah.
Whoever is on Zay Flowers, that's going to be a matchup to watch, because you talked about Mark Andrews, you talked about others as well that could maybe impact the offense and defense for both sides. But even like Rashad Bateman hasn't had a super strong start to the season. Zay Flowers has dominated the target share, over 40% of the targets right now in Baltimore. Zay has 20 targets through 2 games. The next closest player is Bateman with only 8. So Lamar Jackson is clearly favoring Zay. They've established that chemistry and connection. Zay's an elite separator. He's a 3-level receiver, but obviously there is talent in that Detroit secondary. And so I'm curious to see if they decide to shade more guys over towards Zay's side of the field. Are they going to send more attention over there? Because the beauty of Baltimore's offense, when it's all working, is that it's very hard to send attention to everybody, because you have a lot of elite separators on that unit. And Zay's been a guy that has proven that even if it's just the short stuff, he can take a ball on a slant and cut it upfield and get you 10, 15, 20 yards on a ball he catches 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. They've utilized him a lot on reverses and end arounds. They've tried to get him involved in the screen game. He is a very big focal point of what they do on the offensive side of the ball right now. So look, I'm really curious to see what that looks like. And I think also another one, kind of flipping the script and talking about the Lions wide receivers, is the fact that we know that Jamison Williams, he's that deep threat. He's someone that can go and get a ball 60 yards to the house. The Ravens, they do not like to let teams beat them deep. They've used Malachi Starks, their first-round rookie, is a single high guy, kind of roaming that deep part of the field. That has allowed them to use Kyle Hamilton more in that roll up towards the line of scrimmage, and Hamilton can play deep too, but using Starks in that role definitely allows you to use Hamilton in the way that you want him to. So I think it's going to be big. If the Lions start to hit on some of these big 30, 40-yard throws, and Jameson Williams is a big part of that, that could disrupt what Baltimore wants to do defensively, which is obviously keep everything in front of them. So that's something I'm watching as well. I mean, how do you expect Detroit to deploy Jameson Williams in this game? And do you think that the Lions wide receivers versus that Baltimore secondary is a big matchup to watch?
It is, but I'll say this, Kevin. That's a great point you bring up. And the Lions receivers are really good. J-Mo, Khalif Raymond, St. Brown's unreal. Tesla is coming on. And the tight ends are good. All right. Brock Wright scored a touchdown this week. Sam Laporta barely heard his name this past week, and they put up a 52 burger on the Bears. But if Jared Goff is not protected, they can't check Matabike. If some of the guys coming off the edge give them fits, it's going to be a long night. You're going to be talking about a night game. It's dark out there. The crowd's into it. It's daunting. I mean, look, the Lions went to Green Bay. That was a tough environment to play in. I know it wasn't the frozen tundra, but Detroit had communication issues all over the place on the road. At home against the Bears, obviously the crowd's quiet as the Lions are doing their thing offensively. Now, again, the communication, the interior offensive line, this is now their third game together. Glasgow at center hasn't started a game at center in years. Ratledge is a new right guard, and Mahogany's only started a handful of games over the last 2 years at left guard. Communication and keeping Goff clean will be a key in this game. Let's see how the matchups of that D line for the Ravens and that O line for the Lions go. Then we can get to everything behind there because that'll be interesting. But I think none of it, that'll be a moot point unless the Lions can protect number 16. And when he's protected, he's really good.
This is such I think a niche question that really only Ravens and Lions fans can relate to right now. But I want to ask you about a couple of former Ravens, one that is no longer on the Lions, and that is Kevin Zeitler. You mentioned the Lions offensive line. I'm still in week 2 mode. Got to switch it over to week 3.
Yeah.
But that Lions offensive line, how big of a role did Zeitler play last season? And do the Lions miss him at all? And on the same token, the Ravens, they ended up cutting Malik Cunningham during their final roster cuts. Now, he is now a member of the Detroit Lions practice squad. That story got national news.
He's a spy this week, Kevin.
That's the question is, why did they sign him? Obviously, I think everybody knows why, but your opinion of Malik Cunningham coming in and trying to replicate a player that, in my opinion, is pretty impossible to replicate in Lamar Jackson.
Well, right. If you're going to try to figure out how best to prepare for this weapon that the Ravens have in Lamar, why not go get the guy that played with him in college, played with him on the practice squad with the Ravens, and can put on that number 8 red jersey and run around practice on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think it's a brilliant move. The Lions don't normally do that. This is not something the Lions do where, the week before a game, they add a player from the practice squad from another team that they're playing. If they're playing the Bengals, they go get a former Bengal. If they're playing the Bears, they sign a former Bear that's out on the street. They don't normally do that. In this instance, though, they're taking this game. Look, they're always taking every game seriously, but I think they amped it up a little bit by getting Cunningham in here because, quite honestly, he did work out for the team a couple of weeks ago. They decided on, not to sign him and went a different route with their number 3 quarterback. But yeah, he's going to come in and help them for the week. And your first question about Kevin Zeitler, the Lions missed him badly in week 1 and not so much in week 2. Maybe this is the game we kind of figure out, all right, they miss him or not. He ended up getting a little bit more money in Tennessee and probably more guarantees than the Lions were willing to hand out, but he had a tremendous year for them. And, I think that's, look, Tate Ratledge is a good player. And but this is, again, another big test on a Monday night stage to see how he does on the road. Question for you real fast on special teams. No Justin Tucker. How weird has that been the last couple of weeks just to see somebody different?
Yeah, it's been a change for sure, and I think over the course of his Ravens tenure on the field, Tucker was the beacon of consistency, but last year that was shaken on the field where Tucker really, it was a career worst year across the board. He was a big factor in multiple Ravens losses where he missed multiple kicks, and obviously with the off-field stuff and everything, the Ravens just decided, it's time. And there were, even without the off-field stuff, there were calls of like, is this it for Justin Tucker in Baltimore? And so you bring in Tyler Loop as a 6th-round rookie. It was the first kicker the Ravens have ever drafted in their franchise history. And they certainly have a type, Matt, because Loop is another strong led guy. He can knock that thing in from 60, 65 yards. And, he's someone that right now, honestly, for Loop, it's the kickoffs that he's been struggling with. As a field goal kicker, he's been great, but the kickoffs have been an adjustment for him. He's kicked multiple out of bounds. He has had multiple other instances where it just hasn't bounced the right way. And so that's something that they obviously need to work on. You don't want to give any offense, especially this Detroit offense, the opportunity to work at the 40-yard line and just have a short field like that. And luckily for the Ravens, they were playing the Browns last week, who, of course, that offense doesn't bring nearly as much to the table as the Lions do in that regard. So the Lions are a team, just like the Bills were in week one. They can punish you for those types of mistakes, but not having Tucker out there, it's certainly been an adjustment and a change considering how how long he was with the team in general. But at this point, I think, this is Tyler Loop's team. They have full confidence, full trust in him. And, the last time the Ravens had a rookie kicker, it was Justin Tucker in 2012, 2013, and they won the Super Bowl that year. So I know a lot of people in Baltimore want that history to repeat itself. But coming up in the final part of the show, Matt and I are going to break down how both the Ravens and the Lions can win this game. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty coming your way on this crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions. First, the show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot package the caffeine off a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. Now, what I love most is how portable they are. They have big taste, but a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. And for me, my favorite flavor, it's the berry. It's a berry drinks in general are just something I love. And so 5 Hour Energy, that's the one I had to get my hands on first, and it automatically became my favorite. And the flavor is really, really bold too, which I love. Plus, for the 5 Hour Energy shots, I reach for them because they are really portable. The size is really convenient for me. I'm on the go a lot. I'm traveling around, and, it's also that sugar-free component, which I love as well. I love how fast it kicks in. And then that sugar-free aspect, I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. And the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. And the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. That is PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. You can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing PrizePicks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections. Like for this game, Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff, more or less than their passing yard total. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. And this week's max discounts, they include Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 passing yards. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Moving along on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions, Kevin Oestreicher and Matt Dery still diving into all the content and coverage you need leading up to Monday Night Football. Baltimore and Detroit facing off in a big Week 3 matchup. Matt, there are a lot of ways both these teams can win this game, whether it comes to doing the right thing or exposing the other team for doing the wrong thing. There are multiple different paths. What is your clearest path to victory for the Lions in this one?
I'll tell you what, Kev, I truly believe the Lions have got to get at least one takeaway in this game. I think that is the biggest thing. They did not have any in week 1. And I know I'm playing a lot of week 1, week 2 roulette here, but in all honesty, Dan Campbell's been talking about it going back to the preseason. Even in preseason games, he was like, got to get a takeaway. Didn't get a takeaway in this game. Lions got to find a way, whether it's a fumble recovery, an interception, switching the field over a little bit and getting their offense in a good position. I think might not be winning the turnover battle, even if it's even, but getting a takeaway that can lead to points, can quiet the crowd and just calm kind of the Lions down, I think is going to be key. in this game, whether it's Branch, whether it's Kirby Joseph. These guys are ball hawks, maybe DJ Reed. I think that's going to be a big time key for this team. The other thing, and I said it earlier, is protecting Jared Goff. We talk about the Lions run game all the time. Gibbs and Montgomery are so good, and that sets the tempo and the tone for that play action passing game. But Ravens come at you. They're so physical. I have so much respect for what they've done for so many years, having that identity of being tough and defensive minded and after the quarterback. And now you got Roquan Smith there. I mean, that's almost, probably born to be a Raven. But if they don't protect Jared Goff, it could be a long night. So making sure he's clean and getting a takeaway, maybe one or two would be pretty big for this Lions team on the road. Not gonna be easy.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing for both teams. I'm in agreement with you, Matt. Turnovers are the key to the game here. Before I get into mine, I do want to remind everyone that this Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. You can download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, I want to highlight the third down offense for both these teams because stat-wise, they have not been great, either of them, on third down. Lions ranked 23rd at 36%. Ravens not that far ahead at 21 with 39.1. And again, there's context in that. How quickly are you scoring? Is it a short drive that happens on a first down? You're not even hitting third down. That's something. But I know that both these teams have had, for the Lions case, you mentioned the week 1 and week 2. For the Ravens, it was a tale of two different offenses as well, despite the fact that they still put up 40 points in back-to-back games. But I'm also curious about the red zone for both these teams. The Ravens are one of the worst red zone defenses in the league right now, giving up conversion on 77.8% of their drives. Lions are 24th on defense in the red zone at 71.4%. And again, we're early enough in the season where those numbers will flesh themselves out over the course of the next couple of weeks. It's like almost saying, the week 1, the Ravens were 1 for 3 in the red zone. That's a very small sample size. So I think as those stats flush themselves out over the course of the next, 2, 3, 4 weeks, we'll get a better idea of where those teams stand there. But the point remains where one of the best things the Ravens can do against a high-powered, potent offense that has guys like Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Ross St. Brown is keep them on the sideline. Force quick 3-and-outs. Don't let them win the time of possession battle. Don't let them touch the football. I mean, that's the thing that I think you have to do against these talented offenses. It's like the one way that you can guarantee they don't hurt you is when they don't have the ball in their hands and you keep them on the sideline. So that, to me, I think is the biggest path for the Ravens is they tire the Lions defense out. And the Ravens offense, this isn't like the Greg Roman days where they're ripping off 11, 12, 13-minute drives every single time down the field. But even though they're more efficient, if Lamar, Derrick Henry, and the rest of the guys on offense can keep the ball out of Jared Goff's hands and the Ravens defense can continue to force them off the field, that to me is, I think, the biggest way the Ravens can get the job done here.
Gosh, it took us 27 minutes to mention Derrick Henry. What is wrong with us, Kev?
Man.
God, he's good. I mean, I know he had the fumble against Buffalo. I love what he said after the game. Put it on me. Man, what a weapon there to go with Lamar. And it's gonna be a tough task for the Lions defense. I like where they are right now and how they played this past week again, but that's Caleb Williams, the Bears. This is a different, certainly a different beast this week. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know. I mean, should I have some fun and pick the Lions and say 34-33 on a Jake Bates field goal? Lions have played so well on the road. I know they had their first road loss in 2 years in week 1 in Green Bay, but these type of road games last year, they went in and won, whether it was playing a really bad first half on a Sunday night game against Houston and coming back and winning that one. Maybe a late Bates field goal and the Lions get 2 wins in a row. What do you see?
Man, this one could go either way. The Ravens, they get up for these primetime games, and not only do the Ravens get up for primetime games, but Lamar Jackson gets up for games against NFC opponents. He's 24-2, over the course of his career against NFC teams. Obviously, that does include that few games against the Lions here where Lamar was able to get the best of that Detroit team. But again, it's two different teams right now. The Ravens roster, this is the best roster, in my opinion, that the Ravens have had in the Lamar Jackson era. Obviously, Detroit has continued to flesh out their team and continue to address weaknesses and improve. I'm going to pick the Ravens. I'm going to go 32-29, and I'm going to say Tyler Loop breaks the tie with a field goal. That's what beginning of the show. I'm like, hey, maybe it does come down to special teams. And it seems like both you and I are in agreement on that. So I'm expecting a really good game. I think that this is the game of the week, in my opinion. And, you know, in my opinion, I think it'll live up to the billing for sure. But Matt, I appreciate you. Thank you for hopping on. Be sure you follow Matt over at Locked On Lions. You can find me over at Locked On Ravens as well. Both of us will have coverage leading up to Monday night. I know that we get to kind of enjoy Sunday, Matt, without the stress. You get to watch stress-free football on Sunday, which is incredible. I love it. So, of course, we'll both be back here tomorrow covering the Ravens for me and the Lions for Matt, but we'll both be covering each other's teams too, breaking down everything that needs to happen for each team to get a win in a little more detail. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and we will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Lions.